If you're caught up with the manga and clicked on this video, then your first thought was probably something like, what in Nika's name are you talking about? We haven't gotten any flashback chapters yet, have we? Are these 1045 spoilers? No, I promise. No 1045 spoilers. I even have the tag muted on Twitter. If you don't believe me, you could check my search history. However, I will be covering, or I guess, referencing some events in 1044, so if you haven't at least caught up to that chapter, then I suggest you leave now. And I'll even give you a few seconds.
Go crazy, go crazy, go crazy, go crazy, go crazy, go crazy,
Good morning, my name is Shonen, and today I kind of want to go over the life and times of Joy Boy, or Sun God Nika, whatever you want to call him, because I think at this point in the story we have more than enough information to start piecing together what his journey looked like. Maybe I should refer to it as his journey, because I'm from East Blue, New York. Anyway, this is going to be the second video of its kind. The first one was a whole mission to get out, because for some reason I really wanted to put it out on a Tuesday. This will be coming out on Wednesday, as you probably know because you're watching it right now. Maybe you're watching it in the future and it just happens to be a Wednesday, in which case I really hope I mess with your head real quick. But yeah, the purpose of these videos is just to take a deeper dive into some subjects that I can't cover during the review, or just ideas that I had but was not able to flesh out in time. So, this is the outlet that I have for them right now. Now, I haven't deciphered any poneglyphs or read any SBSs or interviews, gone through that whole process, but I have a way better source, because who better to tell us about the Sun God himself than our sponsor, Sunny D, or as we know him, Monkey D. Luffy. 1037 gave us the introduction of Sun God Nika, funny enough via Who's Who, so Who's Who told us who Nika was. Nika was basically this legend that slaves pray to in hopes of being set free one day, and although 1037 kind of introduced him as this sort of myth, we all assumed that he was real. But 1044 revealed he actually was a myth. A mythical zone. With Luffy's awakening, this whole idea of, Luffy being this embodiment, or I guess sort of reincarnation of this old legend, was kind of cemented. And no, I don't mean in like a possessed sort of sense. It's not at all what I'm trying to get into right now. I did that shit last week. What I'm trying to say is, when Who's Who introduced Nika as the sort of liberator, or, god that slaves prayed to, it was hard not to see the similarities between Nika's legend and Luffy's accomplishments. I mean, it only took a couple of seconds for the fandom to realize the resemblance between Nika's silhouette in the chapter and this image of Luffy at the end of Skypiea. So yeah, that's the agenda for today. I want to take a look back at Luffy's journey so far and point out some things that I think will be shown, or at least really noticeable to the fans as soon as we see it, whenever we get that eventual Joy Boy flashback, starting with Zoro. Fire Hunger Zoro is introduced in Chapter 3. He's the second person freed by Luffy, and by all means, just like Kobe, is someone who should be his enemy. Ooh, bars! I'm only choosing Zoro over Kobe to express this point because I feel like Joy Boy's first mate should be exactly that, his first mate. And while Kobe does end up siding with Luffy, he doesn't join the Straw Hat crew. So, you can kind of make this point with other people. Every single person that Luffy does transfer over to his side. I mean, you got Frankie, who's supposed to hate pirates, and Robin, who's supposed to be an assassin. They both end up joining the crew, but again, not his first mate. To, use them to express this point would be kind of a stretch. Although we are awakened now, so this whole thing is a stretch. So, who will Joy Boy's first mate be? You guessed it right. Shimotsuki Ryuma. Really? No, not really, but I think it'll be a Lunarian, or whatever race was out to kill Joy Boy at the time. I only say Lunarian right now because I assume the natural enemy of the Sun God is the Moon God. No, not that Moon guy. Keep that shit away from me. But no, if you're a believer of Ryuma being part of the original Straw Hat crew and the dates sync up, then props to you. Ooh, bars. Again. I just believe it's going to be a Lunarian because I'm taking Zoro's King of Hell title and Rayleigh's Dark King epithet and sort of combining it into this headcanon so I can present Joy Boy's first mate as this dark figure. Now that you know what I'm about, let's power through the rest of these similarities. First, let's address the elephant in the sky, Zunesha. Zunesha serves as a literal connection between Luffy and Joy Boy because she was Joy Boy's companion. So I expect her role to be the same, a companion. With the only difference being the sin that she committed. I don't think what she does this time around would be a sin. For example, if Zunesha ends up being confirmed as Pluton, which I don't think will happen, but in case it does happen, right, then the whole idea that it's an island-destroying ship will come back again, right? It's going to happen again. If Zunesha ends up being Pluton, then she will destroy an island, or, maybe she's the one who destroys the Red Line. I can picture it being a similar moment to Luffy telling the Sniper King, yo, burn the flag. He's just there with Zunesha, and he's just like, it's time. Chop this Red Line in half. Let's get rid of this whole thing. And that brings me to my next point, which is that Joy Boy was a former slave. And I know, wait, what? You just said something more concrete. There's no precedent for this. First of all, who would be a better liberator than a former slave? I mean, Luffy isn't a slave himself. He has not portrayed as such a way, but he is portrayed as someone who wishes to be free, which means he does feel enslaved himself. And also he's now carrying the fruit or the will of this liberator. So whether or not he himself was born into slavery, I still think it's possible that Joy Boy ends up being just that. Also, it would just make more sense considering what we saw out of Luffy and Dressrosa. That's right, I'm jumping all the way over to the New World and talking about the champion of the Corrida Coliseum, Lucy. It's hard not for me to look at Luffy's whole gladiator bit here as a nod to Spartacus. I mean, Luffy, or should I say Lucy, wins a tournament and then goes on to free all the citizens of Dressrosa, whether they're big or small, human or toy. It's very easy to take this story, wind it back 800 years, and change it just enough so that it fits Joy Boy's time. First, you just replace Uchi with a lion, or whatever gladiators fought at the time, and then you take the Mera Mera no Mi as a prize and replace that with, hey, if you win this tournament, you are now a freed slave. And now the events of Dressrosa start to look like a slave uprising. And I'll even go on a whim and say that Gannicus, Crixus, and Oenomaus are probably somehow mentioned or referenced in this story. But we're talking about an individual who lived 800 years ago and was, living in a grass skirt, fighting with a sword and spear, probably lived in a jungle somewhere. How could this all be possible? Well, I just explained it to you how it could be. But to put it into perspective of time, Spartacus was over 2,000 years ago, and 800 years ago, One Piece time is not too far away. Like, we've seen some ruins of the ancient kingdom. They don't look like they're built out of sticks, right? They're built of gold, so very possible, to have something as advanced as the civilization of ancient Rome. Hell, they probably even had robots. And that brings me to my next point, which is the idea that Joy Boy had a whole robot on his crew. I believe it to be true. Some type of cyborg. Jesus Christ, the bars are crazy today. But I believe he had some type of cyborg or even a whole robot, I'll say, on his crew. We've seen Automata on the moon with Eneru. So I don't think it's too much of a stretch to assume that there was a whole robot on the original Straw Hat crew. That's what I'm going to keep calling them, but I doubt that they're going to be called the Straw Hats too. That'll just be ridiculous, like these bars that I keep spitting today. So I think we have more than enough reason to believe they were robots 800 years ago, or even cyborgs, because even the Skypeans who have been kind of restricted from lower society or from the Blue Sea, they have dials, which is a really advanced technology. That's my whole argument here. I just want a robot on Joy Boy's crew. I mean, of all the races to exist in the ancient kingdom, I believe the hardest to accept would be the soulless being that could potentially have been made by the enemy to infiltrate. Also, I just like the idea of having Joy Boy turn over an actual robot, inanimate, not inanimate, but like this object that should not have affection, maybe with the help of like a soul fruit. All far-fetched, but I think, at the very least, we'll have a cyborg Frankie representation on the original crew. That's now 3 things I believe we'll see in the Joy Boy flashback, the 4th being a little bit more obvious, which is the introduction of a bard. We have to have the writing of Binks Sake or, Binks himself, if that's even like the name of a person, but but maybe there's going to be a bard who travels with or, on behalf of Joy Boy spreading his message. And maybe that bard even has, an Ichibei from Bleach type of power where he's like, hey, I can imbue my words, imbue my song with like this different type of weight or like this soul to it, so that as long as people keep singing the song, it'll continue to be true. And, as long as people keep singing Binks Sake, then, hey, one day Joy Boy will come back. Something like that. That's an even farther stretch. I doubt that second part's going to happen, but I definitely think that we'll see the bard with him. There has to be a musician on, the Joy Boy crew, obviously. Now, I promise this isn't my way of going through each crew member and making the case for why we'll see their ancestors in the flashback. I doubt that's the case. But I do think most of them, if not all of them, will be referenced in some way. Again, like you got a cyborg, you got a musician, maybe Joy Boy needs a navigator, maybe he has a pet raccoon dog. I don't know. That might be a little too crazy, but it would be pretty damn funny if, everyone mistakes Chopper for this raccoon dog, and all along the original Chopper was, a raccoon dog. And I keep saying original, which, kind of frames everyone on the Straw Hat crew as this carbon copy of Joy Boy's old crew. But, I think it just means that we'll get a representation there. I don't think that, it's going to be a one-to-one copy. So this next one is less of a similarity or a reference that we'll get and more of a straight-up prediction, which is Water 7. We have to see what it would look like before the water level rose, and also, obviously, the making of Pluton, right? If we're assuming that Pluton was made for Joy Boy or something like that, he had it. He had all the ancient weapons, or at least the ancient kingdom had all the ancient weapons, then I think it's a no-brainer that we'll see that, both the existence or the emergence of the Aqua Laguna and then the creation of Pluton, because the Aqua Laguna seems more and more tied to Luffy's awakening, right? Because we're also told that it comes from the Long Ring Long Land, and Long Ring Long Land is framed as a place that animals can exist and all life can exist as long as they want because, you know, they're free to express themselves or something like that. So now that Luffy's awakening is clearly a rubber fruit that can stretch things and affect the environment, it's just becoming more and more of this idea that, okay, so the previous Gamu Gamu no Mi was on Long Ring Long Land, or like the previous user awakened and was the reason why that island exists as it does right now. Okay, so that's 5 completely unrelated things that I think we'll see in Joy Boy's story. So what's the catch? These 5 things have to come together to make this dramatic reveal, right? This larger argument that I'm trying to make. And no, that's not how I work at all. I write structured ramblings. So if you're looking for, you know, crazy high-level theories, go somewhere else. This is more, again, throwing darts at the board here. But if I could make some type of point with these 5 predictions, then it would be this. Don't be surprised when we finally get that Joy Boy flashback, and it's noticeably similar to Luffy's story. I'm not saying we're gonna get another story about a boy from the East Blue, you know? I mean, the sun does rise in the East. I mean, we already got a similar voyage when we got Roger's flashback, and that was a really similar, like, he stopped at the same places as Luffy, so to have another 1-to-1 or too close of a copy-paste situation for Joy Boys would just be, you know, too much, too risky for Oda, so I don't think that's gonna happen. My whole point is Joy Boy's story has been laid out for us since the very beginning, with Luffy's story. And though they won't be identical, there's going to be some really clear connections between the two. I don't believe that's every single connection that we'll see. You know, there's a few more that couldn't fit into this video, like the Goro Goro no Mi, there's Raijin Island, there's, you know, bells ringing, things like that I just couldn't really find a cool connection to or just make the argument for. Funny enough, when doing research for this video, I came across this panel of Jinbei, and he's just like thanking Luffy for freeing him from Impel Down, which reminds me that, oh my goodness, who's who told all this Nika stuff as this liberator to Jinbei, who was liberated by Luffy, and then goes on to tell him, hey, the Fishman history is all about slavery, and then Jinbei knocks him out. So pretty funny, cool little connections here. Cool. All right, these are the type of connections that, you know, don't make for a whole point, but things that you might notice as well. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe for more One Piece content. I know I say One Piece even though I cover a whole other 2 anime that I can potentially do the same thing with, but if I'm being honest here, it's a lot easier to cook up a One Piece theory, or, you know, to talk about One Piece in depth like this than, you know, it is to talk about Jujutsu Kaisen or My Hero. But since I cover them, I promise those videos will come out eventually, just not as frequent. I also promise to keep putting these things out on the same day. I just have to kind of figure out my schedule for these things going forward because, you know, I didn't really plan around doing these weekly. I kind of just pushed myself to put one out and then continue to put more out as they, you know, as the ideas came. But I'm hovering between Tuesday and Wednesday right now. I want to keep Thursday, Friday kind of open for, you know, potential first reactions to the chapters or, you know, any other seasonal anime. I don't have any anime that are coming out in spring that I can cover on Thursday, Friday. They're all like coming out Saturday. So that means if I release anything Thursday, then it'll be like super late, which I'm not trying to do. I'm also not trying to do no One Piece episode reviews because I read the manga, so the episodes are way less interesting for me. It's cool to see some of the things adapted, so maybe I cover some like Roof Piece, or maybe like this whole fight with Kaido and the Joy Boy awakening, like some serious moments like that. I'll probably go back and do like a random special Saturday review. All right, big news over. That's all I have to say. Now, be gone. Go enjoy the rest of your day, and don't come back until you're a great pirate. Journey safe.